The war on Iran has reached a critical turning point. It has been 6 weeks since the initial attack, and the optimistic expectation that this would all be over in a month has officially flopped. Instead, the world is left wondering if the situation was actually better before the bombs started falling. Previously, the Strait of Hormuz was open for free traffic. Today, it is under a double blockade. We have moved from zero restrictions to a total global standstill in just 6 weeks. Before this, there was at least the possibility of a nuclear deal or diplomatic negotiations. Now, Iran is more determined than ever. They know that surrendering their technology would only make them more vulnerable to American aggression. The regime in Iran, once facing internal calls for revolution, is now more united than it has been in years. The hardliners and the IRGC have become more entrenched, effectively ending any near-term hope for democratic reform. Meanwhile, America has shifted from being a protective asset for its allies to a liability. Nations that relied on the U.S. for safety are now being targeted by missiles precisely because of American actions. From NATO to the Western alliances, the entire international order is shattering. The main point of concern right now is Donald Trump's latest MasterCard, the double blockade. The logic being used is that if Iran cannot be defeated on the ground, it will be brought to its knees by cutting off its economic lifeline, oil. But is this move going to bring Iran to the table, or is it going to backfire? The Strait of Hormuz is only 50 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Iran has effectively turned it into a toll gate, charging millions for tankers to pass, while allowing allies like China to move freely. Trump calls this financial terrorism and has vowed to break it with his own blockade. But this wasn't a deeply planned military strategy. It was announced via a tweet, leaving the American Navy to scramble for a real plan. The U.S. estimates that Iran has about 2 weeks of oil storage capacity. The theory is that after 2 weeks, they will be forced to shut down their wells and surrender. However, this ignores 3 massive risks. First, Iran can respond with asymmetric warfare. They have shown they can hit Gulf assets with precision, and they still have cards to play. Second, the global economic shock. Cutting off 20% of the world's energy supply doesn't just hurt Iran, it triggers a global recession. Fuel prices in the U.S. have already spiked by 30% in a single month. Squeezing the supply further will only increase the pain for the American public. Third, the China factor. 90% of Iranian oil goes to China. Beijing is not going to sit idly by while its energy supply is cut off. If a Chinese tanker ignores the blockade and the U.S. fails to stop it, the entire strategy collapses into humiliation. For India, this is a nightmare scenario. We are an oil-poor nation that relies on the Strait of Hormuz for over 50% of our fuel and LPG. We had just started buying Iranian oil again to keep prices stable, but this blockade ends that. If fuel prices continue to skyrocket, the government will find it nearly impossible to control the domestic crisis. We are dependent on a route that is now a war zone, and our political maneuvering room is shrinking. 6 weeks ago, the talk was about regime change in Tehran. Today, the conversation has shifted. Size. With popularity ratings lower than Nixon's before his resignation, people are starting to talk about regime change in Washington. Protests are growing as citizens see their leaders prioritizing foreign conflicts and Epstein-related scandals over domestic prosperity. What started as a promise of a quick victory has devolved into a cycle of threats and economic chaos. The double blockade might look like a masterstroke on paper, but in reality, it may be the move that finally breaks the international order. One thing is certain. If this war doesn't end soon, the coming days will be much darker for everyone involved.